Imagine that every time you go to work or school or the grocery store, you are at risk of being blown up or shot in a terrorist attack, or being kidnapped to be sold into a prostitution ring. However, for many people in countries like Pakistan or El Salvador, these are the things that they have to face on an everyday basis. This House believes the nation states have an obligation to unconditionally allow entry for legal refugees. The first reason that all nations have an obligation to allow refugees into their borders is that of a moral one. In many Latin American, African, and Middle Eastern countries, innocent lives are lost and hundreds of thousands live in horrible conditions through no fault of their own. For example, in El Salvador, according to Human Rights Watch and their World Report in 2019, gangs continued into 2018 to exercise territorial control and extort residents in municipalities through the country. They forcibly recruit children and subject some women, girls, and members of the LGBTQ community into sexual slavery. Gangs kill, disappear, rape, or displace those who resist them, including government officials, security forces, and journalists, many of whom are American. El Salvador also has the highest homicide rate in the world, with it being 50 out of every 100,000 people. The moral aspects of allowing refugees becomes even more complex when you realize that El Salvador's gang problem is mostly the result of the U.S. According to The Guardian, in the 1980s, when there was a bloody civil war raging in El Salvador, many people in the country fled to the United States to escape the conflict. There, some of them started the gang known as MS-13, which is the main gang terrorizing El Salvador. However, when they were in the U.S., they were mostly harmless and were no worse than the average American gang. However, when Bill Clinton's administration deported many El Salvadorians en masse, almost all of the gang members went back and, due to El Salvador's weak government after the Civil War, became the gang they are today. The second reason to let refugees in is the practical side. For one, according to Rescue.org, in the case of the United States, welcoming refugees would help our allies hosting more than their fair share. In Jordan, 1 in 11 residents is a refugee. The inflow of refugees, mostly from Syria, has overwhelmed Jordan, yet it has kept its doors open. In 2016, it cost Jordan nearly 25% of its annual state budget to host refugees. For more than 2 decades, Kenya has also welcomed more than its fair share of refugees, hosting Somalians in the world's largest refugee camp. In 2016, developing and middle-income countries generously hosted more than 84% of the world's refugees, while the 6 wealthiest nations hosted fewer than 9%. And in addition, refugees are entrepreneurs, consumers, and taxpayers, contributing to economic growth and creating jobs. Entrepreneurship amongst refugees is nearly 50% higher than people born in the U.S. The U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program is designed to help refugees achieve self-sufficiency quickly. In 2016, over 80% of the refugees in the International Rescue Committee's Early Employment Program were economically self-sufficient within 6 months, and refugees pay on average $21,000 more in taxes than they receive in government benefits. Refugees have also gone on to become CEOs, ambassadors, and influential economic and cultural figures, including Google co-founder Sergey Brin. So, for the good of all involved in the process, we must let refugees in, not only from a practical standpoint, but from a moral standpoint.